guys, it's Margaret from Let's Learn to Sew. And in order to go ahead and kick off our series that's going to just lay out some fundamentals of pattern making, I want to do a quick video sharing with you some of the tools that you're going to find useful as you go through this series with me. Some of these are optional and some of them are ones that you're really going to need. And along the way, I'll try to give you some tips and tricks for some things that you can interchange so that you don't have to spend a lot of money on supplies. First thing you're going to need is some type of paper to draft your patterns out on. This is very similar to medical table exam paper. You can use any type of craft papers. Having something that's see-through is going to make it easier. You can also use a mid-weight interfacing. I know some people that use the backside of gift wrapping paper. You want to make sure that it is wide enough to use. I find using either the interfacing, the medical exam paper works great. We're going to be transferring and tracing, so having something that's see-through is helpful. Yardstick is really handy. Clear ruler is very, very helpful. I would pretty much say that a clear ruler is almost a necessity. Optional are going to be your styling rulers and hip curve. I'll show you some different ways to get those curved edges if you don't have them. The other ruler that I absolutely love, but again, this is not a must. This is like a French curve ruler, but any of these widths are 5/8. This makes adding your seam allowance super easy. I'll show you several ways to do it if you don't have one. A seam gauge can be used for your seam allowance if you don't have one of these rulers. I'll also show you how to use your clear ruler for adding in a seam allowance if you don't have something else. Both of these are great to have. You are going to need some kind of tracing wheel. The one with the little spikes works a lot better than the one that you get in a traditional sewing kit. This is an adjustable one. You can move these two brackets in and out of several different locations. When they are towards the middle, it is exactly 5/8. Again, something like this is going to allow you to transfer markings, and it's going to make putting your seam allowance in easier. Seam ripper is super helpful when we start doing our muslin. An awl works great. If you don't have one, I'll show you a couple other things that you can use, but these are pretty inexpensive and you're going to find that it's useful for a lot of things. So this is one of those items that I would suggest picking up if you don't have one. A notcher, that's going to help you to make your markings. Scotch tape is useful, but not necessary. This helps when we're marking our darts out. Okay, and of course, a tape measure is one of those must-haves because without a great set of measurements, you're not going to have a well-fitting pattern. And then finally, you're going to need something to mark with. You're definitely going to need a pencil and a good eraser. I would also suggest having a pen in a couple of different colors or even a highlighter. Some fabric chalk is great for marking your muslin when you go to make any changes, and also if you want to make some marks on your dress form if you're going to be using a dress form for some of your fitting. I'm going to be doing my pattern drafting in a fine tip marker in a couple of different colors, only so that you guys can see it well on camera. I always use my pencil first. Just because we're going to be making a lot of measurements and then we're going to be smoothing them out with our curves, and we're going to want to be able to erase the markings so that we don't get confused. The other thing that's helpful, but I didn't grab mine, is a set of pattern weights. You're going to find those helpful as we start tracing out our sloper into our block and into our patterns. All right, so those are the basic tools and supplies that you're going to need to get started with pattern making. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section. In the description section, you're going to find a link to our website, letslearntosew.com. You'll also find a link to the blog post that goes directly with this. That blog post is going to give you a better description of each tool, whether or not it's optional or necessary or somewhere in between. and it'll include a link to help you find these products online or locally. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd love it if you'd go ahead and hit subscribe. And as always, check out letslearntosew.com for lots of tutorials, blog posts, patterns, all things related to sewing and pattern making.